Hello everybody, we are going to be doing a recap of the Ottawa Redblacks 2022 season. I know this is very late and I know that the season's about to start, but I wanted to get these done, so I'm going to get this one out and Saskatchewan's out before the weekend's over, then get the other two done, and then focus on previews as the season approaches. So today we're going to be talking about Ottawa. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe to me if you're new to my channel. Whatever the case may be, I'd love to have you here along the way as I try to do this as a career. Now let's get into it. And Ottawa ended up having a rough year. You probably know this by now. They go 4-14, end up finishing with the worst record in the CFL, tied with the Edmonton Elks. This was disappointing because if you remember at the very beginning of the year, they had a lot of hope, they had a lot of optimism. GM Sean Burke brought in a lot of guys from Hamilton. You had Jeremiah Mazzoli, which was the crown jewel, Jalen Eklund, etc. There was a lot to be really buzzing about because this team hasn't been good since 2018. And with Mazzoli at the helm, you feel like they had a franchise quarterback for the first time since Trevor Harris is gone. So they start off the year and they're still losing games. But the good news is, I believe the first two games that they played were against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I think they did a back-to-back. They barely lost both of those games, and they did so really where I think turnovers hurt them, and then also as well, just silly mistakes. They weren't big losses, if I remember right, and you had a feeling that if they could get to where they could compete with Winnipeg, they should probably be a playoff team this year. Then either the third or fourth game of the year, disaster strikes as the whole Garrett Marino incident happens, which is by far my most popular video on here. It has like 13-some thousand views, even though I literally just did it in a really terrible way while I was walking my dog. I didn't expect it to blow up the way it did. But the Garrett Marino incident happens and Jeremiah Mazzoli is out for the season. This means that they have Caleb Evans and then eventually Arbuckle. I believe Arbuckle, I don't remember where he was, but I don't think he was on the roster at the time. But they had Caleb Evans there, and he was going to be playing and starting, and things kind of continued on, but they weren't able to win games. Eventually, Paul LaPolice gets fired. They are 3-11 up to that point. Arbuckle and Evans kind of going back and forth with starts and opportunities. They have interim head coach Bob Dice, that is now the current head coach, come in. They go 1-3. I don't have a crazy amount to say about Ottawa that you probably haven't already heard. I think William Powell was injured as well at some point in this season. I think they dealt with some key injuries as well as really just couldn't find their way after Mazzoli went down. Do I look at this season as a success or failure? I think it's kind of mixed. I look at this club, and while they did go 4-14 and they've continued to not be very good since the 2018 Grey Cup, they have just really shown that they have the ability to compete. Whether or not they're going to be able to compete enough to win games and make the playoffs, I don't know. In my preview for them, we'll talk about that, but I will be honest with you, I do think that they have the potential to be a playoff team next year, but that is all based off what we saw last year with a lot of fight in them. Now they have Coach Dice there, but in general, I look at this too, and I say, had Mazzoli not get hurt, are they a team that's capable of making it to the playoffs? I don't know, again, too, there, but you look at this, and for Ottawa, I think this is one of those things where the positive out of this season was the fan base was still supportive, and that's big because Ottawa has a rich football history. They have a very long, history with football with the Rough Riders, and then they had the Renegades very briefly there in this version of the team. The team in the beginning of the franchise was a very good team, able to go to 3 Grey Cups in 4 seasons, win one of them. Since 2019, they haven't been great, and while there was some games where attendance wasn't great, I think there was one where there's like 5,000 people because the weather was just atrocious and pouring. They were able to still say that the fan base was, activated, and they were still involved within this team. And so for them, at this season, I will say on the field, the results weren't there, so I guess it was a failure. Anytime you miss the playoffs and you end up firing your head coach, it's probably not the season you want. But I will say, too, at that same end, they were able to test some things out, too, where they figured out that they probably didn't want to roll with Caleb Evans going forward. And I think that one's tough as well because he's shown flashes, but at the same time has struggled a bit, too. But there's the positive there in that aspect, why you don't want to move on from a guy that your fans really like. At the same time, Evans probably wasn't going to be the starter this year and showed that maybe they could go in a different direction there. They'll play around. I think Arbuckle still should be the backup, and they were able to find their head coach for the future. So that was the recap of the season for them. No winning record, no playoffs, anything like that, but there were some good, bad, and ugly along the way for Ottawa in a season that they look to put behind them as they go forward and try to get back to the playoffs. So we will be doing previews for these teams probably within 2 to 3 weeks, honestly probably 2 weeks, just to get them out before the season starts. So if you're interested in that, please make sure to check those out and check out these reviews as I get them done along the way. Also, if you found this video enjoyable, I know it wasn't as in-depth as it should have been considering that I did this months later, but if you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe. This will not be happening again next year. I will make sure to get these videos out in a timely manner. But anyway, everybody, please make sure to stay safe. Have a great night.